When somebody confesses that they've been acting out, the first thing I ask them is, why didn't you call someone? Hey everybody, it's Road to Recovery. As part of my tactics series, today I'm going to be discussing the Lifeline Tactic. The Lifeline Tactic is used primarily in 12-step programs. And the reason why it's used, well, because prior to all the technology, you usually had to just reach out to somebody, which is exactly what the Lifeline Tactic is. It's reaching out to somebody when you feel that your sobriety is threatened. But it's actually a little bit more than that too, because in the process of reaching out to somebody, you're actually building social bonds. As part of the recovery process, it's really important, I believe, that you try to reach out to others as part of the recovery effort. You're instilling trust in another person so that you have somebody to talk to. The purpose of doing that is to not only foster a sense of companionship inside of the recovery process, you're also instilling a sense of trust in another person. And through that process, once you can build trust and get out of your own isolation that the addiction tends to get us into, it gets easier to do the self-examination that's required inside of the recovery space. And the reason why is because if you were just an isolated individual, when you're in that process, when you're actually, trying to fix yourself, half the time you're either bypassing little things that are important, that should be important to your recovery, or you're not catching yourself when you're going into what I call the stinking thinking, when your vision is clouded and you can't comprehend the details that are in front of you. That happens a lot in addiction. By being able to have somebody else that you can actually confide in, if you're going through a process where your judgment is clouded, by talking to another person, that gives you a springboard to be able to, throw the ideas out. And if something is not computing to the person who's listening, they can ask the questions that are necessary. It's also good to, I believe, to have somebody who's just on your side, a person who can actually sit down and listen as you're having, whether they're emotional problems or just, being, or just having the difficulty of dealing with the complications of addiction. Sometimes it's just tough. It really is just difficult to have to get into an area where you constantly have to be self-examining. One of the exercises I give my sponsees when I first take them on is to take the list. We have a list of people that are inside of our recovery group. I have them call 3 or 4 people on that list the first time I take them on. I'm just like, hey, you know what? I know you don't know these people. Just give these people a call. And that is allowing them to get past their own isolation, but it also starts fostering that sense of, okay, I can trust this other person. And once that trust gets established, then they can start reaching out to that lifeline should they need it. Now, what does it look like to use a lifeline? Well, when you feel that your sobriety is threatened, that's when it's a lifeline. That's when you're trying to reach out and you're trying to stop you've had a trigger, you're going to your craving, you're trying to stop you falling into that craving, because the second the craving starts taking over, that's all she wrote. The lifeline is useful for when you can actually put a wedge between that triggering moment and the craving itself. That allows you to take a break, call someone, and in the 6 to 10 minutes that an average caller has, once they make that conversation, it gives them enough time for either the triggering and the craving to subside, but it also it just puts them away from the environment in which they were being triggered. And that's so important. If you can allow yourself that out, That moment of time to give yourself a break from whatever the triggering event is, you've succeeded. You've actually given yourself what you really need, which is a cognitive break from what's happening inside of your head. When the trigger happens and you get into the craving, if you just let that sucker go, you're going to be white knuckling it, right? Well, if you can talk to somebody, what happens is that section of your brain that was focused on either the craving or the experiential moments that were happening as a result of that, shift on over, and now you're on a phone conversation. And heck, you could even, while you're on that phone call, you don't have to be talking about the fact that you're triggered. You could be talking about anything. You could be talking about football. As long as you're talking, like just using your brain and talking about something that wasn't involved in that triggering event, you're doing good for yourself. To wrap things up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the rules and etiquette for outreach calls. So when you use your Lifeline, there are some things that kind of just keep in mind. And what I'm going to do is use the SLA outreach calls documentation to sort of impart some information about what's the best practice. So just quoting here, outreach calls are an opportunity to connect with fellow members and practice building healthy relationships, an opportunity to support each other through recovery, especially during withdrawal and other situations where we feel triggered and have an impulse to act out, an opportunity to learn how to work the program from someone with more sobriety if both people wish to share, an opportunity to share the progress we have made and our signs of recovery, an opportunity to build accountability as you work the program, and a reminder that we are not alone. Outreach calls are not a one-way monologue or an excuse for dumping. Dumping is toxic for both the person making the call and the person receiving it. Both people need to share when possible. A therapy session. It is not your job to fix or rescue anyone. A replacement for going to meetings or calling a sponsor and necessarily lengthy 5 to 10 minutes is acceptable. And that is the Lifeline Tactic. I hope you found this information informative. Just keep in mind, with all of these tactics, you can mix and match. Use them as tools inside of your tool chest for your sobriety. If you like what I do here, please like, share, and subscribe. That helps me to stay in contact with all potential addicts that are out there that need help. I don't monetize any of the content that I do here. This is all for free. This is my 12-step giving back. Thank you, and stay on that road to recovery.